Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Sackdown. Today we have BB with us. We're going to be going way back, player profile on BB, talking about all the stories that he has, because at this point, BB, you're a mega veteran, bro. You've been playing for what, like 6 years, complete years, and you have a ton of experiences. So let's start with when you really popped onto the scene, because obviously you played in Turkey. You're on Royal Bandits. You're on that team that had, all the homies, the team that had Closer and Avadagi and all these people that ended up going on to bigger and better things. But when you joined TSM, I remember hearing that you were a super coveted free agent. Everyone wanted you at the time. I kept on hearing this guy has 4 challenger accounts, bro. He's got so many high elo accounts and solo queue. This guy is insane. What was that offseason like when you were choosing between going to LCS and LEC at that point?
Okay, so like when TSM back in the day approached me, I was like, oh, it's 100% for the academy, right? Back then, the academy was like much bigger, right? Like a much bigger thing. So I was like, okay, it's probably just for academy, so I'm not gonna get my hopes up. I had some couple other offers. It wasn't like great offers back in the day, but then I was like, I started talking with Parth and Lena at the time, and then they said, in the beginning, like, do you wanna, like, we want you to split time with Honser. And then I really disliked the idea of it, because I was like, oh, I think I'm good enough now, to play. And then it was very quick, everything. I flew over to America to play. And then things started, very fast. For me, it was like a big shock. I thought I was ready to play in EU. I didn't know at the time I was going to play for TSM, which was a very, very big organization at the time. So for me, I was very happy to play with Bjergsen, especially because he was just a legend, right, at the time. So for me, it was like I was very nervous meeting him, especially a young kid from Turkey coming in, playing with the GOAT. So for me, it was very, very nice.
Yeah, I would like to hear more about the Bjergsen point, because you always, like, even privately, you'd always tell me how much you respected Bjergsen. Like, this guy was somebody who you looked up to a ton. So how was it like to really play with him? Was he somebody who was teaching you just the game frequently? Was it just the fact that he was so accomplished that you looked up to? How was it playing with somebody like Bjergsen?
I think it's rare to find someone like him. Even now, like after I played so many years of esports, just professional League of Legends, meeting a lot of people, I don't think I've met anyone even close to him. I think he's very, very good and very smart, and he's very emotionally smart as well. I would say I've learned a lot from him, not only how to play the game well, but also how to behave well as a player, and as a teammate. Because I feel like there were so many moments I could tell you that I gained respect, from my side. Like when the first ever split we played, we went to the final, right, against TL, and we got reverse swept,
yep.
which already something very, very devastating. But then he, right on stage, he pulled everyone together and gave us a very, very heartwarming speech, and I think it's tough to do something in the situation where you just got reverse swept, being able to like pull the troops together and say like motivating words, because it's not easy, especially like from my side as well, now that I do speeches and stuff like that. And Yamato, you probably know as well that it's not easy always to find the right words to say, but I felt like he always found like meaningful words, that actually reached you, and especially me, because I'm into that emotional shit, like I care a lot about like good words. So yeah, it was very amazing, I would say, to play with him.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking about just leading into that, because at this point, when you guys got reverse swept in finals, this was actually the second time that you got second place, where it felt like you guys really had a chance to win. Obviously, the other one being in Turkey. So with this placement, like how did you feel about would you ever get that title? Because at this point, it feels like after this happens a couple times, you might start thinking to yourself, maybe I won't ever get that title. Maybe this is like not meant for me. Maybe I just don't have what it takes. Did you have any of these thoughts, or did you like know that at some point you'd be able to experience the success?
Well, I mean, you obviously, like, I think before I placed first, I think I reached second like 3 or 4 times. I'm not quite sure, but you obviously get doubts in your mind. You know, back in the day, I remember when we were playing in TSM, we would always compare ourselves to like TL, and TL was the better team or a very, very strong team. And then we would be saying stuff like, oh, if like in practice, oh, if this is TL, I can't play, you know, like if I'm playing against TL right now, I wouldn't be able to play, and stuff like that, which I think nowadays is something very toxic to say, you know, like you don't want to make someone bigger than you are, especially if it's in your league. But yeah, I mean, it always sounded like we were never the best, always like close second. And for me, like I would say my career in America was successful, you know, like I don't think I was like super bad in a split. I think I had worse splits for sure, you know, and I had pretty good splits, but like the doubt in my head was like never really there. I always was aiming for the best, you know, and the way we got first place was kind of weird as well. We went from 4th place, you know, through lower bracket, I believe.
Yep.
And then we
Golden Guardians.
Exactly, which we lost first too, right?
Yep.
And then we beat them.
Yep. Worse.
And I remember that series I played pretty well. If you look back at it, I was talking with Closer after the series. I remember it was still like amazing. You know, you go into that game 5. I played Camille against Gangplank, which at the time was not a good matchup, and I ended up solo killing him. And then after the game, I remember Parth was like, he was running into the room, hugging me first. You know, it gives you a very nice feeling. And for me, it was very sad because the first time I ever won something was
during
like
COVID.
During COVID. So for me, I couldn't feel the power of like the screams and the fans. You know, it would have been very nice, but eventually I won anyway, and then I got replaced.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of things to talk, but believe me, we're gonna get to all of this. So in 2019, like we go back to 2019, you have this first split. It's the reverse sweep. People don't remember it. It's the one where Sven got caught. Like, you guys look like you're gonna win game 5. It's like almost in the bag. It's a lock. Then Sven is 1v5 contesting, has QSS. He thinks he can threaten Skarner. Smithy catches him. Game completely shifts, and you guys end up losing. Then you guys had the jungle swap that came in. So there was Acadian who was playing at this point, and it looked like he was solid. It looked like he was a really good jungler, and because of the fact that Grig was originally the starter and he got injured, you know, one of Yamato's favorite players, somehow Armeo is always brought up in every episode. We somehow end up bringing up Armeo. It's Yamato's least favorite player, but because like he was promised to be the starter, then he got the spot. Then there was this trade-off between both junglers, and suddenly you guys end up playing with Spica in the end. And this is when Spica was really young. This is the first time he ever played within his career. Did this summer split just feel wasted? Because from the outside looking in, it just felt very weird, the whole way that you guys went from being a second place team to swapping junglers throughout the whole thing, going with a new jungler, and then eventually missing Worlds.
Well, I mean, it was definitely weird. I mean, it's always weird, especially if I feel like both junglers are just very different in a way. I think that Armeo now, I guess, was more of a passive guy, just like less talking, I think, if I remember correctly. And Acadian was also just playing different champions. And I think at the time we just decided to go with Acadian. I don't know 100% the reasoning anymore, so I don't want to say something that is untrue. But Acadian was, I think at the time, better. So we stick with it. For me, it was like I didn't really have much of a say, I think, at the time. I mean, I think most decisions didn't come from me at the time. I wasn't really someone.
I mean, Reggie seemed like he was
of importance.
Let me add some context here. So I actually ended up having Acadian on Crackdown like maybe 3-4 years ago at this time, and the way he talked about it is he said that there was just an incident where there was just a walk where, you know, he had a discussion with Reggie. Reggie said, "Hey, let's go for a walk," and then, you know, Reggie kind of just like destroyed his confidence right there. It was just saying like, you know, we're going to be trying to like swap between junglers. And Acadian, from what he said, was kind of like an emotional player where he just wanted to feel like he's part of the team, like everyone had his back. And I think that was something that what he said was kind of like destroyed his ability to really like be part of the team. It just felt like he, wasn't one of the boys anymore. So like, I guess that would be the bridge into the fall off into Spica. I don't know if that like jogs your memory, or if this
I mean, I definitely do recall that Arcadian was emotional. Like he definitely had very low times where he was playing like just like he was down and stuff like that. I remember that. And when Speaker came in, it was like, I think at the time was like a fresh breeze, like there was just a young guy. He was very similar to me at the time with like the humor, like it was like just some dumb humor, we were making jokes a lot, very mechanically gifted player. And it was just fun to be around. I think it definitely helped a lot with the team atmosphere. I feel like there was like Acadian is a very, very, very nice guy, to be around. I really liked to be around him. He was very, very nice. Same with Armeo. The difference between them and Speaker was that Speaker was just saying more random stupid stuff that is funny, and he was very, very mechanically gifted on like the carry champions at the time. Yep. I remember the first time we played with him a scrim, he played like 5 Sejuani games in his academy team, and then he had to sub in for us, and then he had to keep playing Sejuani when he was playing a lot of carries before, which was kind of funny. I feel like every jungler has to go through the Sejuani phase.
Yep.
So
rite of passage.
A bit of a side note, I wanted to ask you both, considering that there was like sharing time between players and so forth. Do you guys feel that straight up just having like 6-man roster is just like a big meme? Because like the buy-in of the 5-man group is so important. So I kind of wanted to hear you guys' take, because we all have so different experience. Maybe you can go first, Bibi.
I think, I think it can work. It just depends how you want it to work. There's multiple ways, right? There's a way of making someone motivated to be better, right? This is a way of actually trying to use 2 different playstyles, which I think is a bit more on the fake side. Because, okay, if you just let the guy who plays a lot of carries play, then you're going to draft according to that. And the guy who plays only tanks, for example, I'm just going with the jungler example right now, right? So it can be same for top lane, where you play a lot of carries or a lot of just blind pick tanks, right? I think it's very exploitable, especially if you have a 6-man roster. So I'm not really sure what it accomplishes. I never played really much with a 6-man roster. I did with like Acadian, right, and Armeo, but I didn't really feel like there was a lot of value from it. And that's why I also didn't like the idea of me sharing time with Hanser at when I received the first offer. I mean, I think it can make sense for motivation and like fighting for the spot, but I don't know if it's worth like sharing it.
Yeah. Eventually there has to be a winner. What do you think, though? Is there something that stands out to you besides like the SKT one of past with Bengi and so forth?
I mean, pretty much from what I understand, the way I kind of feel is that there will always be a better player among the two, or at least a player that the team likes playing with more. It will never be just a direct 50-50. And it's not like one of those things where you can actually, like the player who's going to play is on stage. So the enemy team can prepare it for both and just exploit, whichever player is going to be the one who, plays whatever style. So I've always kind of felt like having like a 6-man that doesn't play, like having somebody else who's like involved in the scrims that kind of acts like a positional coach, I think that could provide value. But having like a direct 6-man roster, I've just never been a fan of it. I've never really heard of it working super well, at least in modern league. I think, maybe before there was time, but right now I don't really like it. I think that there's just going to be a player that ends up being better. It's one of the things I always hate when we watch LPL and we see like a guy who's playing well and suddenly somebody else subs in. It very rarely feels like it's benefiting a team. It's like normally it's just one or the other, right? BLG, they were playing with Shun. Wei came in, they just only play with Wei now. Like that's just kind of how it is. It's not like, oh, well, maybe Wei is more of the control style. He's playing the Maokai, Sejuani, Ivern, and then Shun will play the carries. If we need somebody to dive bot level 3, he's going to play his champions. So I think that in general I'm not a fan. I just feel like it'll never be good for the team because the team is not like robots, right? Like people have emotions and people have biases, and I just feel like it's very rare that the other 4 players are going to view both people equally and be able to acclimate to both of them seamlessly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back of the examples. It's like it was like
Faker
Whippo
Easy
seemed to.
Hoon.
It's like a fake Easy Hoon, but that was like a meme in my
Yeah.
opinion, even though Easy Hoon was good. I think like Whippo probably was one of the better ones because he was just so excited to be there. Like if he didn't play a single game at all, he was like super happy to just like observe, and like he like added like a perspective that was very different to the team. And then suddenly he played like AD. I'm thinking back to it like IG as well. Like Duke being there was just like, was that just like a whip that they hit on Teshai when the time came? But it is a very strange one because like the buy-in of the team and the buy-in to each other, how you spend time together. I think this is so important. But to bring us back to the conversation of your time in North America, I like to find out the psychology behind reverse sweeps from both sides. There was the series you had against Clutch Gaming. That was a reverse sweep. You slammed 4 Atrox games in a row. If I rip open these wounds, what can you tell us about this one and what your team went through and what you went through?
Well, I mean, I think that series, was it 4 times Atrox or was it 5?
It was 4 straight, I believe. You won 1 and then 3 losses. I think you played against Aurelia twice, and then another game I don't remember which one you played against.
Was it? Yeah. I mean, it was like I think we were 2-0 up, and then Huni came in on stage and he pointed at the crowd like 3 more games. There's 3 more games. And at the time I was like laughing and I was like, what is that guy? What is that guy doing? And then I played Atrox, and I played a lot of Atrox in my career, but I was never really the best Atrox, and there was a reason for that, and it is because I didn't know, as I was in America, I didn't know how much value solo queue is actually giving you. I was playing a lot of random stuff, and I thought, okay, Atrox is so easy. I'm gonna play Atrox, whatever, just give it to me. And I was playing Kalista top lane, Kiana top lane, and all this shit, like hundreds of games of it because it was fun at the time. And I go into a series and I play 4 Atrox games. I don't even remember, like, a lot of Atrox games.
Yeah.
And Huni played a lot of Aurelia.
4 Atrox. 1 Jace game 1, you win. Game 2, you win on Atrox. 3 more Atrox games afterwards.
Yeah, and then he just kept picking Aurelia even though he lost. And he started like, I feel like when you go back into that series, I feel like I was doing poorly, like I was doing poorly against Huni especially. But also one thing that I knew was like lacking was my synergy with Acadian. I don't think I was playing very well with him at the time, and I think that was because the way I communicate with people back then was just bad, because I feel like I couldn't share what I needed to get through the game. And before, when you play losing matchups and you, for example, need an outpush at every, like when you play a matchup and you need an outpush at a specific time, every single time this matchup is being played, I feel like I couldn't communicate that well enough, either in game or outside of game. So for me, the synergy with Acadian was off. I think he was very, very, very good at playing around mid and bot lane, and that was also partly my fault, right? Because I am playing that role. I need to make him understand. And I think that series, at least the Clash Gaming series, was a lot of it was my fault of why we lost. I just played the champion I wasn't very good at, and there was also no switch. Like I feel like at some point we would have said, okay, game 5, let's just not pick Atrox, as well, because I don't really remember how the draft talks were and like how we were talking about it. But if I play 4 Atrox games and lose 3 of them, at some point I should be the one saying, hey, this is not a good idea as well. And they reverse swept us. I cried after we lost for like at least 30 minutes. I don't even know how many tissues I used. And Bjergsen was there the whole 30 minutes with me, cheering me up, saying that it was okay. I was very sad. This was going to be my first Worlds. It was going to be me playing against Closer as well, because he ended up playing against Closer and Armuts. And I remember I went to Berlin as well to watch, and it was like, it was very sad, seeing them play instead of me. I was quite upset.
Yeah, those
No,
ones
understandable.
hurt. Yeah, those ones hurt.
Understandable. I can't relate to being reverse swept by LMQ and not going to Worlds because of it. You know, like that would be sounds really tragic, bro. I don't know what to say. Did Reggie give you a Steve meeting? Did you get a meeting afterwards where you had to, you know, reveal your contract to all your other teammates and, you know, decide whether or not? Okay, all right, okay, good. That was
I have
I
to
guess
say
it was
that
after
I mean
Season 4.
Reggie was very nice to me in my time in TSM. Like I know he wasn't maybe the nicest to everybody, but he was nice to me. He was always nice to me. I sometimes didn't agree with what he was saying, especially in terms of like how he was viewing things. I think you could easily disagree with some of the stuff he's saying. He was very strong with what he was saying as well. Like one thing, for example, is he really believes that you need to be able to micromanage your teammates, otherwise you're a bad player. And Sven really disagreed with this, and there was a big fight as well. I don't know if he ever really said it, but they have been like talks, right? But not too many from my side, so I don't really want to talk about it too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely some hard talks, harsh talks. I didn't know at the time what was going to happen after, you know, we lost and didn't make it to Worlds, but they wanted to keep me and give me another year, which I was very grateful for. I thought that I can be even better, you know. So
Definitely. Yeah, so 2020 comes in. Let's start with 2020. So you start 2020. The big thing that people were talking about was, I mean, obviously, like Kabi came over, but Dardoch joining the team. Dardoch at this point, he was obviously known as mechanical talent, but the big thing is that he didn't play for all of 2019. 2019, he sat under contract. He was in academy. I believe he was like Optic Academy or something like that. And this was him returning to the LCS, and everyone was saying, "Oh, this guy is like super toxic. How is he going to function in a team like TSM?" So, how was it like playing with Dardoch in that first split? Obviously, it was weird. That's when COVID hit. You guys started playing from home and everything. But what was it like playing with Dardoch? Like, what did you feel were his strengths, and was he actually as toxic as people make him out to be?
Playing with Dardoch was interesting for sure. It was one of the most interesting experiences I've had as a player to play with Dardoch. I think he is good, or he was very good mechanically at the time. I think he was very emotionally attached to playing well, and if he didn't play well, or if he thought he wasn't playing well, he was talking a lot about like how we can fix it in draft instead of like taking responsibility for his mistakes. I feel like at the time, and he had a lot of trigger moments. Like he was just sighing a lot, saying trigger words when stuff is going bad, or he was like spamming the keyboard when things were not great, you know. And as a teammate, you don't really like that, you know. Like it's just like it's also contagious, right? If someone is being negative, it feels like you can be more negative. And we had David, who was our sports psychologist at the time, really focusing on making his mind work with us as well. And he was even like, while we were screaming, he was in a different call with him, and David was like reminding him to like, hey, you're being negative, be positive more, and stuff like that, while we were screaming. And outside of the game, Dardoch was completely different, you know. Like he wasn't like how people describe him. He was very chill guy. I mean, he didn't talk a lot. Like, and when he talked, he mostly talked about League of Legends or anime, which is for me, it's fine, right? I like to talk about those stuff anyways. But he was completely different. So I don't know how the emotions got mixed up when he was playing, but it was definitely hard. It was just very difficult. I feel like you get put into the same room with him, you are fighting like a demon, you know, and it's a fight you cannot win because there was always a reason of why something is bad or stuff like that. And I still to this day I don't like have anything against Dardoch or usually against any player I ever play with, because there's reasons of why people behave a certain way, and even in my recent years, you need to be able to deal with your teammates in your way, because everybody is different. Everybody's growing up different. You don't know people's stories, and for me, it was just how do I make it work with him. And back at the time, I wasn't in a role or position that I'm in now, and knowing as much as I do now, you would argue that the Bjergsen was like the leading captain, right? And I also had a lot of talks with Bjergsen about how we can, help him, play at his best, and which I think at the time was also great. Like, I feel like after like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, me and Bjergsen had like a dinner, and we were like, hey, we need to do something, like what do you want to do about that? Which I think this is a healthy environment, even if someone can be negative. And all in all, it was tough. It was very tough, and we decided to not go with it anymore because it was just not worth it. It was just too hard. And Kobe, if I want to talk about Kobe was a player who I believe at the time was I liked to work with Kobe. I think he was great, especially for the way I wanted to play the game back in the day. I wanted to have a lot of resources. I wanted to have a lot of like attention with jungle. I played a lot of carries, and Kobe was very good.
Every game, even in solo queue, you start pinging the wave. As soon as you get into lane, minions haven't even crashed, and he's pinging the third wave and saying, you can come on this wave. You can dive him on this wave.
Exactly. And for me, we can touch on this topic as well. I really learned how to carry a game in TSM, and that is because of Parth as well. He really talked a lot to me about, you are not good enough yet to carry a game. And I didn't know what that meant, because like, what does it mean? I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough mechanically because I'm like styling on these guys, on like the top laners. But like, what does it mean to carry a game? And this is something very, very, when I look back at it, it's very beautiful because it was so true with what Parth was saying, and I'm very grateful to have worked with such a person, because I can see a lot of similarities with me and Yike now, where I see Yike is like very, very good, but he can still like carry games on his own if he wants to. And I have these talks with my teammates, which is very beautiful. But coming back to Kobe, for now, he was also just very, very passive as a person. He wasn't outgoing. He wasn't talking much, which also didn't help the situation we were put in, right? So if you have a player very negative and another player is just doesn't do anything about the situation, and we had the Bifrost, right, at the time, who's also another like a very passive person, doesn't talk much, especially doesn't engage in conflict. And the only one who neither was I. I was very I was joking around a lot, right? Like if people remember like the TSM Legends and stuff like that, I was talking a lot of bullshit. Like I was
so
just
much
having
bullshit,
fun.
bro. 10 minutes of just bullshit to the camera every single time.
I was having a lot of fun talking to the camera, but like when it came to talking like very, very strong, difficult words, it was very hard for me at the time. Like every time I was trying to say something, my voice was shaking, like I was about to like cry, because it was just hard, it's hard to talk about like these things. So it was really only Bjergsen and our staff who really could do anything about the situation at the time, and it was just too difficult. So we just ended up scratching it out, and playing with Speaker and Double Lift.
I wanted to ask before we jump into the conversation of the summer roster. You mentioned like the intangibles in regards to like getting a game. Can you describe what that means in your mind and maybe tie it together in terms
just
of
leak it? Just let everyone know. How do you carry a game?
Like you can show us dance moves, but it doesn't mean I can do them. I can't do a backflip because I see one.
Okay. It's a very good question. How you carry a game? I think there's multiple ways, right? Like I don't think it just starts in the game. Like in the game, I think it's like how do you envision when you play a champion or when you play a specific comp, right? Like when you first pick, let's say an AD carry, the super OP AD carry like Ashe. Like I think Hans for example is very good at carrying games. And I'm not talking about like mechanically carrying games, but like dragging people when they need to be there, saying exactly what you need to in order to be able to carry in, and saying how you want to team fight. These kind of things. And for me, where like at some point in TSM, my coaching staff was thinking that I was too bad at split pushing.
Yep.
So we just dropped a lot of counter picks, because at the time that was with Peter Zhang. He thought I was too bad at split pushing, but I never knew that that was their opinion. And then I ended up hearing this from Bjergsen as well, which is something that I don't agree with this philosophy as like, I feel like if someone messes up with something very bad, you should be able to address it very nicely and say, hey, I think you're bad at this. But back to the topic of carrying, I think someone who can carry a game is someone who can lead people to do what they want them to do. It's like kind of like a puppeteer, you know? You you make people do what you want them to do. And I think this is something, if you like, you for sure in your careers, both of you have played with people who can do that, or listen to people who can do that. I know that, for example, like I have been working with someone like Alfari, right? I know what he can do to lead people to make him carry. And I do similar things, right? With saying, like Dom mentioned, the level 3 thing, right? I know things in advance, so I can tell people where to be in advance. And these kind of things is how you carry without actually playing the game, right? It's just by being smart and being good and demanding. Like it's also, there's a difference. Like when I was playing with Kobe, he didn't really make those plans. I feel like they just had to happen in order for him to carry. But if there's someone like for me, Hans is the AD carry that I play with who talks by far the most, which is something very, very weird, because I used to play with a lot of AD carries who were just very focused on their lane. And Hans is like, I'm gonna do this, we're gonna invade here, we're gonna do this, we're gonna dive bot on the second wave, make sure the enemy jungler can't gank me here, you can invade on this timing. And this is how you carry. This is like strictly just how you carry a game. And for me, I didn't know what that meant 2019, 2020. You know, and even after that time, I started like reflecting on why I wasn't able to carry and why I was able to carry certain games. And I started realizing how to do that mostly when I didn't have Bjergsen anymore. That was in 2021, where I was like playing with Abdage and Gilius, where I'm like, I don't have the guy anymore, you know, the guy that I can like look up to, you know.
So you think Bjergsen was better than Gilius? Is what you're trying to tell me?
They're playing different roles. If Gilius played mid lane,
can't compare them. If Gilius is playing mid lane, that's whole different situation. I'm not gonna let you diss my boy like that, you know. It is what it is.
It was very different, you know? And I knew, for example, Bjergsen could do that. He was very good at carrying games. So for me, it was also easy to learn. And I think, for example, I thought Sven was a super, super hardworking player, super good player. But I think he was missing that key point of playing to be able to drag people to him. I think if he was able to do that back at the time, I think we wouldn't even be able to be stopped, because I thought he was so fucking good as a player that I don't know how. Like I thought when I was playing with Sven, I was like, this guy is so good. This guy is so hardworking. I've never seen anyone, like, I don't think I've seen yet to this day someone as emotionally attached to the game than Sven. And I still to this day respect how hard he was working, which in the end is very sad, because I couldn't win a trophy with him. I personally loved to be in a team with him. He was really funny. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think an interesting conversation to have is around how TSM kind of structures like their practice and like potential improvement. because this is an organization that was always, from my experience, even going as far back, and I was friends with Bjergsen, so I talked to him a lot. There was a lot of structure in how TSM would like practice. There's a lot of like, there's a rigidity about them. Like things are very finite in terms of how they see improvement and bringing new champions in. And I feel like you are a player that needs to have a certain level of freedom in order to really be yourself. Like you're somebody who's always liked to have a lot of different counter picks, be able to play a bunch of different styles, and kind of use practice in order to develop all those play styles so that you can pull them out when needed in situations. So before I ask the question, let's just bring up the anecdote. I brought this up to you before we even started this, which was the Soraka Tryndamere, which is the split pushing thing, right? Where Soraka top was really big. Everyone was playing Soraka top. I think it might have started with like Wonder in EU or something. And the counter to Soraka top was Tryndamere, because Tryndamere actually like just didn't care about the harass of Soraka. You could just perma push, eventually dive, split push, and play the 1v1, and it'd be very advantageous for Tryndamere. And I remember like at this time you came to me and you're like, man, it's so frustrating. Like they're not letting me like learn. Like I want to be able to split push. I want to be able to like actually like play the game, but I can't like do it if they don't give me the reps. So like, how did you resolve this in your mind? Do you think that TSM was overly rigid with the way that they structure things, or do you think that maybe it was good that they limited you in some ways?
Well, I mean, at the time I was very angry and I was very sad, not because they didn't allow me to play like Tryndamere, right? But they
because of
they
the
thought
way
that
they
was
went about it.
exactly. And like I probably was not great at the time at split pushing, or like how split pushing works. I feel like at the time I probably got caught a lot, or like I didn't know when I was pressuring. I remember that I had a lot of talks with Bjergsen. I was like, oh, you can't base on this pressure timing. You need to be able to pressure before an objective is up, stuff like that. And yeah, to this point, I think they were correct, but this wasn't addressed. Like I didn't know I was bad at it. Like obviously you can reflect yourself, right? But like if something is like so bad that we have to stop playing it, then at least I would like to know, kind of way, like instead of like just like slowly getting off of it, because it gives me clarity on what I need to work on for me. And it happened with a lot of stuff. And in the end, like a coach also just wants you to win, right? Like he just wants you to win, so he thinks it's probably the best if you don't play split push champions. And it's not like he's strictly against me or wants me not to improve. I just thought that the way that things were being handled was wrong. I think the decision at the time was correct, to not let me play like Tryndamere, because probably we would have lost like 2 or 3 games, like realistically, in order for me to learn how to split push. And I think eventually this is also something you need to like obviously you need to experience failing split pushing to then be able to split push. I mean, nowadays you see G2 only split pushing really, because we got that stuff down. I feel like no one really plays like us in Europe. Everyone is just 2-lane timing and grouping, and they're just losing so much on the map. We're getting so many towers every single time, and they're just running. If you play well the split push, they look like headless chickens, right? And I think if you go to international stage, it would probably be different. But my main point is, I think as a coach, you need to be able to address stuff. And even as players, right? I think this is something that is not talked about enough. I think it's not only the coach's job to tell a player that he's messing up, because the message is very different when it comes from a player. Not like that coaches are not respected in any way, but when a player tells you, hey, bro, you're like dying a lot. What is wrong? Why are you dying a lot? Just asking someone this question will make him think, right? And for me, I didn't have that, and I had that just after the split. I believe, if I remember correctly, which is for me sad, because I feel like I was very emotional kid back in the day. Like I was like, oh, I'm so mad. Why did they not tell me? Because I was also not the most humble. I thought I was better than everybody in the region, like on top lane. So I was like, why can I not play Tryndamere? Why can I not play Aurelia? Why can I not play these champions? But again, like a lot of talks with Parth, he's like, you're not good enough to carry it. And like all of it ended up being true, what he said, which again, like I'm very grateful for having these conversations. I think these conversations is what makes players great So I think you need these, I don't know how you call them, but like these figures in your team to, push you. And I think you need people that you respect as well. Because if I thought that at the time, like, what are you saying, bro? Like, I'm the best, then obviously I probably wouldn't be as good as I am now. I think this also takes skill, like to be able to take criticism well. And before I did not. And this is something I didn't talk about, I think, ever anywhere. But I was very bad at taking criticism. Like, I was a lot of time pushing my opinion away or joking about it. Like when someone is saying, "Oh, you're doing something very bad," I would just joke it off or laugh it off, right? And at some point, I got so many comments about stop saying that, or like stop pushing things away, or stop talking hypothetically about these things. And again, I'm very, very grateful for that this happened, because now when this happens right now, I can see, hey, I'm thinking this way, like this is not correct. I would just be like, am I in the wrong or am I in the right? And if I'm in the right, I will look to fight for it, like in a good way. Or if someone thinks like I'm being delusional, and I was delusional even in the past years for like certain topics, and I feel like right now, if someone tells me something, I'm like reflecting on it very fast. And I'm pretty sure if you ask any of my staff members, they will tell you the same, that I'm very quick at bouncing back, because I'm also a human being in the end. And if I get emotional, I have to really think of why, because I also get angry or mad or frustrated about the game. And before I would push it away and think, oh, this fucking jungler is griefing me, or I would never think it's my fault. So now I really look for everything that it is my fault, because now I can get better at it, or at least look for a solution together. That's what I'm doing now with my team, which I'm very happy about. I'm very happy with the way I am working with my teammates and my staff. So
we will cover the whole G2 journey, because like to see the transformation, even though I don't know you super well, but the brief conversations, it's like the growth is very evident. But before we get to that point, there's still the summer split, of course, because that was also so like the double lift exit from Team Liquid was so turbulent and was so crazy, and it seems like with all the issues that you mentioned of course the spring roster, it seems like double lift was a character that kind of brings that to the table. Can you describe working with the two NA goats together in unison? How was it to be a part of that?
I mean, it was really funny. When I first knew Double was going to join us, I had a Twitter DM with him, and he's like, "We're gonna win the split, like for sure." Like he gave me like, for sure, and I was like, "All right, bro, let's do it." And we ended up winning, and working with like the two NA goats, right? Like you have Bjergsen and you have Double Lift. They were two completely different personalities, and they were still in their own way very, very good at what they were doing. And Double Lift, yeah, as you said, he brought in a lot of personality, a lot of talking power as well when it came to conflict. Like he wasn't scared to tell like Bjergsen that he was griefing or anything, like you always have respect, And when someone like Double Lift, who is on the same like level as him back in the day, was like, Bjergsen is inting here. When these conversations started dropping,
was it shocking to you? Or were you like, what the fuck? Like
for me, it was like, oh, I was like, no, I was like, oh shit is about to go down, that day.
You thought they were gonna fight like this.
It was a really funny day. I don't remember, but there was for sure something between them. And then Bjergsen thought Double Lift was griefing, and then Double Lift thought Bjergsen was griefing, and then there was this huge like argument, and I was like, oh, we can actually talk like that, not like actively, but probably like in the back of my head. And it was just nice. It was just I feel like we could really, really progress, when you are able to have these hard conversations and no one is like this in the corner, like just like you really you get progress in not only how you think, together, but also what is the solution now, right? Like I feel like we on TSM we had so many long talks, like so many long hours. We skipped so many off days to scrim, like so many, and it paid off in the end. You know, I feel like it's just with Doublelift coming in and Speaker as well. Speaker was also again like just very, very casual, like easygoing. You know, it's just a funny dude. It was just great. It was just a great atmosphere. Double was working well with Bjergsen and Bifrost, and
Yeah, but not always Biofrost, because I feel like that's the interesting part about this.
That
this
is
time,
true.
right? Because
yeah,
if you
Okay.
can obviously you guys did end up winning, right? And that's what people remember. But you guys weren't supposed to win or even like come close to winning. If people saw how you played in regular season, you're like a fourth place team, then playoffs hits, boom, 3-0'd instantly by Golden Guardians. And like Golden Guardians were considered to be like, you know, a super strong team. I know the core ended up winning with 100 Thieves later on, but at that time, you know, no one really respected Golden Guardians. You guys get 3-0'd. And this is when you were swapping time between the supports. Then Biofrost comes back. You guys go on this run. So can you tell us how this felt? Because it's much different than when you play now, where you're on G2 and everyone expects you guys are going to win no matter what. You guys could fucking run it down, have like a horrible series, and everyone's like, yeah, they'll probably still win anyway. Like there's just this aura that you guys have where it's everyone in Europe feels like you guys will end up winning. This was way different than that. So explain like how it was to be in this environment, go through this journey together with your teammates.
When we were playing with Trees, the scrims were going great, like much better than with Bifrost at the time, because Trees was again someone who was like engaging in a lot of talks and conflict as well, and that was like it was feeling nice, you know, like when we were playing. But when it came to stage, I feel like he really underperformed, and also it looked like from what I was hearing after the games that Double was very unhappy with how Trees played the laning phase, and they had like a small argument in between the games. I think he played Morgana one game and he's like, "Oh, you can't do this. This is so bad." And then Trees was like, "No, this is how it's supposed to be playing." And then I think that after that, just Doublelift didn't want to play with Trees anymore. He was like, "No, I want Bifrost back. I want to play with Bifrost." And then obviously we are not talking against it because it's his partner that he plays with in the bot lane, so we stick with it. And ever since then, we started like, we just started winning. And I only really remember the finals. We were 2-0 up. Then there was like a super long pause. I think Wild Turtle's electricity went out.
Yep.
And then it went
travel like a different location. I remember.
Exactly.
Like...
Oh yeah.
Then I believe I played 2 games of Jace and I lost. Oh, I played Jace and I lost. I don't 100% remember. And then game 5,
Camille.
I was on blue side and I was like, oh, I don't know what to blind. I'm just gonna blind Camille. And we had Camille TF, which is such an OP combo at the time. I ended up killing
you Giga Smurf.
solo.
You Giga Smurf that game. I was proud, bro. I was cheering you on, bro. I was coaching. I was like, God damn, my boy's gonna do it. Like it was hype back then.
Yeah, it was very good. Again, like Parth was rushing to me after the game and hugging me, and I was so relieved. I was like lying on the floor because of how much stress there was. You know, like imagine you play a whole series. There's a 2-hour pause, then you go 2-0 down, like 0-0, 2-2 now, and in the deciding game you're playing like Camille TF, which is like pretty big pressure, you know. And he had a very good GP game. Like you would think back in the day, GP against Camille and TF was a very nice pick, but it just ended up not mattering. They really played bad the last game as well. I remember because there was a time where Bjergsen was screaming, "They're inting." I'm pretty sure you can find it somewhere, but it was just great, you know. Like it was very great. And then we had this like scuffed trophy lift in the TSM facility back in the day. And it was like very weird. It didn't feel like real, you know. I feel like I didn't get my real win because there was just no crowd cheering you on. And I think the crowd is really what what makes it special, you know? Like so many people in the world watching you to win. I think that's what makes it special. And for me, it was very sad that not happening, because I remember there was a moment when I was playing against TL the very first final, right? 2019. When I played Vladimir the first game, and I stood up from my chair. That was the first time I heard something this loud of like people. And when I was walking down to go to the green room, I lifted my fist, you know, I did like a fist like this, and the crowd just got like extra loud. And for me, I had instant goosebumps. I felt like I was immortal, you know, like it's undescribable. Like, yeah, like you're laughing, but it's like, it's such a crazy feeling.
No, I know what you mean, bro. Well, I only had one moment, but like it was
but it feels amazing, you know, like being able to feel the energy in the stadium.
The stage is like shaking and shit. Like I feel like that's the thing that people, it's like your keyboard and mouse are fucking shaking, bro. Like you feel the shit in the room, you feel the energy literally.
And it's so amazing, you know. And for me, I thought that day I played so good, and like losing was very sad for me. You know, I think I don't know how many times I solo killed Impact that series, but yeah.
So
round of the worlds.
The 2020. We could talk about worlds. I feel like worlds. I mean, from the outside looking in, the way it kind of seemed was the way that your team needed to play was to band-aid a lot of like your problems. Like this was the Zilean era of TSM, where I was like, I guess Zilean is the best champion in the game. It has no bad matchups. You can play it into everything. It beats Lucian in lane. Like in North America,
counter set mid.
it countered everything when Bjergsen was playing it in North America. And I remember on the outside, people were looking in and saying, there's no way this is going to work internationally. You can't just pick Zilean into like an Orianna that's really, really good and get through the lane, even CS. You're at least going to be at a deficit and have to play comeback. So from the outside looking in, it seemed like the world's result made sense, given how you guys ended up having to win North America. But from your experience, was it any different? Was it shocking? Because this is your first big international experience.
Well, for me, it was really exciting, right? Like I went there thinking like, oh, now this is where the real stuff starts, right?
You think you were gonna shit on everyone? Did you have the delusion?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I was hyped. I was hyped as fuck, you know. Like you go in there, you're like, I'm gonna smash Bupol.
We're gonna win worlds. Like fuck it, this is gonna be the first time.
I don't know if I thought that. Okay, never mind. But I was like, I was looking at my group and I was like, oh, we got the easiest group. You know,
easiest. Oh shit!
I mean, it was LGD. It was LGD. What was it? LGD Genji Fnatic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And there was this very special moment where when we did the group draw, we said we're gonna ban Evelyn.
Evelyn
when we
Lucian.
Fnatic. When we draw Fnatic, and then there was a little oopsie on stage where we forgot to ban Evelyn, and then we lost. But yeah, I mean, back in the day, I thought even today, maybe it's my you know, like delusion, but I thought to this day we could have won 5 games out of 6. One game we got turbo stomped, but the other games were winnable. But maybe it's just my delusion speaking. In the end, it was very, very bad performance, right? I think every other NA team did better than us, and we went as first seed. I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to do for us. The 0-6.
Yeah. I think that checks out. The math checks out there for sure. Yeah. But I mean, even though you guys went 0-6, I mean, I don't think the expectation was that you guys were like NA at this time was not supposed to have results. You know, it was like kind of getting out of groups would be the main thing that people were looking for. I think the weirdest thing after this was seeing the way you got replaced. To me, because you come back, you're obviously the person that stepped up in that game 5. You had a ton of fans. People really liked how you were playing. Just gave the team an element of like an X factor that felt very useful. And the way you ended up getting replaced is weird because you were replaced by Huni, but it feels like you weren't actually replaced for Huni. It felt like you were really replaced by Sword Art. Like that was the real thing, is they were opening up an import slot to get Sword Art on the team. This is I mean, Huni is like NA resident. So just talk through this period of like you getting replaced, how you found out, like what your options were, because I heard it was not the smoothest.
Well, I mean, I found out okay, so basically there was still COVID, right? Like there was still regulations. So going back to like I wanted to go back to the US, so I had to stay 2 weeks in a different country. I was in Dubai at the time for 2 weeks. That's how Riot was managing things, and that's when I had the talk with I didn't even know if Bjergsen is going to retire. I didn't know from him. I didn't know from anybody. I saw it online.
Mhm.
Like that was my first reaction to that topic, and I was very very upset about that topic that I didn't know about that. But it made sense in the end because it meant that I was going to get replaced very likely. There was some negotiation talks after that, and I feel like the offer they made me was like very silly for me to stay. So I obviously didn't want to stay. Like I thought before that entire announcement and stuff, I thought I was gonna stay here for my whole career. You know, I really liked it there. But once I saw that interaction going on, I kind of disliked the situation a little bit more. I thought that things were handed not respectfully to me. I felt like I gave it my all to TSM all this time, and I think the way I got treated in the end was not the best. Obviously, I believe it's not on purpose, but I felt like I didn't get the respect I deserved in the end. But yeah, I mean, in the end, you are right. Like I did not really get replaced for Huni, but so they would use their import slot for someone else. And it was mid lane and support, right, at the time.
Yeah, Power of Evil,
was
Sword
Power of
Art.
Evil. And I think from a outside perspective, I was like, okay, if you compare myself with Huni, I don't think there's much of a difference, but there's probably very big a difference if you look at the mid lane champion pool or like players. Like at the time, it wasn't like great players there, right? And same for support. There was the reasoning at least, and that's why they went with it. So for me, at least the one thing that TSM did very nice is they gave me an option of where I could go. There were multiple teams that wanted me at the time. I think CLG wanted to buy me out, but I did not want to go there. I really didn't think that project was good. So I wanted to go to Europe, and Schalke had very very big interest in me, and I really wanted to play with Abadaga. I mean, many people know he's one of my bros, you know.
Yep.
And
Only from way back.
And I really wanted to see how good he has become and work with him together. So TSM was very very nice. They made the buyout very low. So in that aspect, I thought TSM were very nice to me. So I also have to give them credit there. They could have very much said, we're just going to send you to CLG and get some extra money. But I thought that was very, very nice. Who knows what would have happened if I stayed another year in NA and did poorly in a project I didn't even want to go to. So I'm very grateful for this as well. I have to say this. So yeah, and then Schalke year started.
The Schalke year started.
Yeah.
The Schalke year starts. Everything's going well for the most part. You guys, I would say, overperformed expectations in spring. Get fourth place.
You fucked me up. 3-0.
Fucked Yamato up.
Oh yeah,
we have this podcast. Like, this is the main reason for it. You know, like you made Yamato a podcaster, which I'm sure you're very proud of.
I think I played against Lulu top lane. Was it
against us?
Against you guys? Yeah.
I'm not sure. Lulu top lane?
I think so.
I just remember that game you played GP and we ganked with Lee and we lost the whole game.
Oh my god! I outplayed you guys super hard that
yeah,
day.
you did.
I just remember I remember from this split, like the main thing that I remember was just the BrokenBlade Darius, like the pentakill. Like, I was like, holy shit!
G2.
Like,
against G2, yeah.
Yep, against
They're
G2.
disrespecting my Darius.
And I believe it went to game 5, right? Wasn't that a 5-game series?
Yeah.
That was a banger that you guys had.
And then Reckless dropped his ego and played Seraphine and carried the whole game. It was
CEO.
crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Dropped ego and played Seraphine. So
we thought he was not going to play it.
Yeah, I mean, this series was, this was overall a good performance for Schalke. Most people were impressed by how you guys did. Then there's the whole Abadage thing where he ends up going to 100 Thieves. He comes to NA, and you guys kind of have to like pick up the pieces of the roster. So Can you explain a little bit how like you were able to perform well within the Schalke team in summer? Because the whole thing looked doomed, but you were somebody who actually got a lot of credit. Most people said you were still a top 3 top laner in the region, even though your team was like 3-15.
Well, so okay, going from spring to summer was Abba was like leaving, so I was like, okay, that's fair. You know, it's a great opportunity. Go to 100 Thieves. You know, I wasn't like for me as a teammate, I was sad, but as a friend, I was very happy for him. So for me, it was now, what do I do? You know, like I joined this team because of him, but now he's gone. So what do I do? So then we had 2 changes. Gilius also did get replaced. We got Kire because we thought we needed someone who can really guide the rookie that we have, which was Nuke, or Nuclear Int at the time. And I loved working with Nuclear Int or Nuke.
We call him
thought
Nuck
he was
in the SAC, you know. I mean,
okay, Nuck.
Yeah.
And I thought he was like a very promising little kid. He was also like cocky, you know. He thought he was like so good, and he was very. I think he respects me, at least from when I talked to him after we lost. He said he liked playing with me. You know what I mean? But
okay. All right, baby.
when we started Summer Split, we had a very high win rate in scrims. I never had a win rate this high in scrims ever. Like I think it was like 67%. With this roster, I was like, are we going to win? Like what's up? You know, like. Damn. And then we go in our first game against Vitality. First game, and I'm playing Lee in top lane. Akira was playing Talia. An enemy was self-made back in the day with Vitality, and they had Braum, and he's walking up with Talia to Q the Sinsa, and we're like, oh, we don't see Braum. Careful, we got pushed out mid. Kira walks up, dies again, trying to cheese gang mid lane, gets counter ganked. Game is GG, complete GG. And I feel like from this point on, everything went so downhill. Kira really did not work well with Nook. Very, very bad. It was very the opposite of what we thought it was going to be. I think that Kira was just expecting way too much from Nook at the time. Like, oh, you need to be able to do this, but like, and I feel like they had a lot of differences in like the way they see the game, which it's not easy, you know, like you are being put in a tough spot. So that was our best shot we had. I thought Kire, when I was playing with Kire, he was very good at like diving as well, and that's something I love to do. I thought he was very smart about the game. I still think he's good. You know, he has some good ideas about the game, but it just never clicked from the get-go. And our bot lane quickly lost motivation as well. I also lost motivation. We went to, like, after every scrim day, we went to smoke shisha with everybody, and that was every day. Like, we had so much stress. The days were so bad, so stressful. And obviously that was the time I started working. Like that year, I started working with Dylan and Rodrigo, which ended up being us together for a very, very long time. But yeah, they were doing the best they can to, like, you know, get some wins in the boards, but it was too hard. Ended up being 3-15. We ended up scrimming even though we lost. Like, we were pre-eliminated already, but we had to scrim anyway. Dylan really wanted us to scrim the last week, so we did. But yeah, I mean, just a complete disaster of
You think if Gilius came back, it would have been a miracle run?
Okay. This is a story many people don't know. Gilius did come back. He did come back in scrims. And those scrims were probably the worst scrims I've ever played in my life.
Oh my god.
No offense to Gilius. Gilius thought he was like, like he thought he was out. So he was just playing TFT perma. So he comes back. I think he was playing like Bolivia or Hacker. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to speak anymore. Like, he wasn't like, it didn't feel like he was speaking with, like he was just speaking, you know? Yeah. No, like it didn't feel
empty
like
words.
Empty words, yeah. Like I didn't feel like like the Gilius I knew before, he would be like, the Gilius, he would just be talking, But that wasn't the Gilius I was playing with in summer. Like he was just like saying something. I was like, there was no like emotions to what he was saying. Like I feel like he was obviously in the toughest spot ever, right? Like we are very doing poorly, and he's just like coming in, it's like, oh, Gilius, you need to play for us. Like it's not going great. But he was like just not prepared at all. So he came in, played. We played like 1 or 2 days. We said, Dylan, this is not gonna work. it's too bad. Yeah. So we had to play with Kirei again. And Kirei was actually like, at least he looked from my point of view, he looked like okay with it because he knew it was not going great. So I actually respect him for that, to be able to like come back and be trying hard even after that. But yeah, in the end, we didn't have a good time.
Was there ever a idea to let Gilius play like a stage game or something? Because it's like, it feels like from what I've heard about Gilius, even back then, I think I did an interview with Dylan Falco at some point. It's like Gilius was kind of a stage player. He's kind of like a scrim inter stage player type guy, where like he doesn't do the best in scrims, but like on stage, he's confident, he'll get it going. And it seemed like Kirei was always the opposite. It seems like Kirei is the guy who, like, you put him in a no pressure situation, solo queue, this guy is good, but he just doesn't have like the I don't know, like the makeup.
It's Armau.
Yeah, bro. He just doesn't have the makeup to get on stage and, really like be confident. It seems like he just breaks under pressure really easily. So did you ever think like maybe we just let Gilius play a game on stage and he'll like snap back into it?
I mean, I'm not sure if, I mean, maybe there was some talks like that. I think it probably would have been a better experiment or a better project mid split when things were going very, very bad. But it ended up not really working. I think maybe it would have changed, but again, like Gilius was not playing any solo queue for like a month. So I doubt it was going to change.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's easy to like go back and be like, oh, you guys lost every game at that point anyway. Like, so what would the difference be? But obviously, from your perspective, it wasn't as doomed as it ended up being. You guys are like 3-6. There's potential for playoffs there. So obviously, you have to, just trust in your practice somewhat going forward.
Everybody sweats, but only those in the know don't smell. For the regular fans of the Last Free Nation podcast, you've already heard us talk about Mando whole body deodorant plenty. I found out about it myself on Power Spike. You can use it on your whole body, your damn grundle, as Digon likes to say, and most importantly, your sack. This is the sack down after all. It controls odor for 72 hours, so you can go outside and don't go home and don't shower for all the time that you need. 72 hours should be pretty damn solid. You can customize the Mando starter pack however you want. I'm personally a big fan of the Mount Fuji scent. You can do unscented too if that's your thing. I personally use the solid stick on everywhere. Don, what do you like to use?
Grundle only for me. It's a great. It keeps my Grundle fresh, smelling like Mount Fuji. Yamato's been here at this place, and now he knows
traffic. That's
now he knows what Mount Fuji smells like.
Well, lovely. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and of course, free shipping. Luckily, you, as a watcher of the Sackdown, you have access to this discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code TSD. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code TSD at shopmando.com. That is shopmando.com. Shop Mando. Use the code TSD, baby.
Yamato, do you have something? I saw a one come through the chat.
Yeah, I was just because you touched on it, right? It's like you've worked now with Dylan and Rodrigo for a long time. Like 2022, I really tried to get Rodrigo when Schalke was like disbanding or selling the spot. I was like, Rodrigo, please come to my team. And then I see the announcement, join G2. I was like, that's respectable. You know, it is what it is. Tell me, how is it to work with Dylan? Who I consider, it hurts me to say it, but I think Dylan is the coaching goat of Europe for sure. Talk to me how it is to work with these two homies.
It's very good. Like it's surprising how good it is. You know, like I think Dylan is he's very smart about like how champions interact with each other and against each other. And I've never really worked with a coach that was like this smart about like who's carrying, but he doesn't do it because he thinks someone is good or something. Or like, for example, we're not drafting every game for caps, right? He's doing it because he believes in a project, in a structure. He sticks with it, and he's very direct, very strict. And the thing about Dylan, what he got a lot better at is calling people out. You know, I work with Dylan a lot when it comes to like now in Schalke, I was already like quickly touching on that. I was already becoming the person to talk to first, right? Like that was where I was like going into the role of a captain leader-ish. Not really, but somewhat. And back then I didn't have a lot of talks with Dylan about like situations like this. And Dylan was, and also Rodrigo also got a lot better at addressing stuff. And Rodrigo is just, I have to give a lot of credit to why we won a lot of games. Like Rodrigo was the guy who would find the tank Hecarim. He was the guy to find it, and then we played it. Gilius was just spamming tank Hecarim. We won every single game on it. Kaiserrel, this combo. Like I think we got like 4 games in Spring Split. Instantly won a lot of these games. We won against G2 as well. No one expected us to win against G2. And Rodrigo is also very hardworking and just so quick at finding things. Like he also has like this crazy website with all
I'm so jealous.
all sorts of things, and it's so easy to work with. Like, oh, Rodrigo, do you think you can do this? He's like, yeah, you just give me a day max, and then he has it for you. And Dylan is like, yeah, it's just very good at like finding how we're going to win. You know, I feel like that's mostly the key. I wouldn't say like Dylan is like, oh, the greatest at like knowing how the game itself works or how we win in the game while we're in the game. I think that's more of a role of like us players, right? I think generally I don't think it should be a coach's role to teach you how to win the game. They should teach you how to make you win games easier. That's what I think. And I think Dylan is doing the perfect job at that. Like he gives you the tools to, you know, like if you look at us recently, like this recent drafts we are playing, it's not like I'm getting drafted to carry. Like I was having a lot of Cassante, you know, like, but he knows like what do we need so we can carry, right? So we need a Cassante, so Hans can carry, or we need a tank jungle, so I can carry. We need Sejani, so I can play Camille. We need, and he really understands these things very well, and he really understands counter picks very well. And I feel like he also trusts a lot of players to like take over drafts, you know, like when someone's like, pick me Belveth, or like pick me
Belveth game 5. That was he trusted him.
He trusted him, and it ended up not being great. And he knew as well that it wasn't the best pick, and he should have taken over. And he again, like this is something he reflected on, you know, like he came in and like, I knew it wasn't going to work, and him as a coach, he needed to be able to be like have the stronger voice to say that we have to do something else, but at the same time also not crush someone's confidence.
Yeah, it's so hard to do that in a game 5. It's so hard to be like, hey, bro,
exactly.
like you really feel good about this champion, but you can't do it right now.
Because if someone is like, oh, I really think this is so good, coach, you know, what do you do as a coach? Well, like, how is your coach gonna have to react to make this situation at least even? You know, it's like, and in some cases it works. Like if you look at Capsy with the Vayne mid, right? If he lost that game and they they were losing that
Very
game.
close.
Like
Yep.
they were losing, and if he lost that game, Dylan might have been a complete different person. You know, like who knows, right? Like this was such a big moment for like the whole. Like I don't know how many views this post has, or like this thing has. It has so many views. He really is also self-reflective of how he handles stuff, which I respect as a coach, because I think a coach can really, the same way a player can improve, I think a coach can improve, and I think he's getting a lot better every year, the same as I am, and I feel like it's nice to see this. You know, we've been together now for like, I think this is the fourth
year.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the progress we each other make, you know, and same with Rodrigo, same with Dylan. Obviously I've been playing with like Caps now for like this is the third year, and also seeing those improvements is like it's cool, you know. It's cool to see how a person can grow and get better.
For sure. I wanted to hit on this, just ask you one more question about Dylan, because like we said earlier, you're somebody who, I think to get the most out of you, you need to have a certain level of freedom. Like your skill set is best when you have the ability to pick, you know, a wide variety of champions, and a coach needs a certain amount of trust in you to be able to do that. But from speaking to Dylan before, and you know, speaking to former players, he seems like he's somebody who's more on the structured side. You know, he doesn't want to waste a lot of scrims playing, you know, a bunch of champions that might not be pulled out. So how did you find like a happy medium with Dylan? Because it seems like you guys came in as kind of opposing viewpoints on, you know, how many champions you need to play, and you know, like what actually should be done in scrims, all this type of stuff.
It's funny. There's a couple stories. Obviously, I always want to find innovative picks that make you win, because you just found the right pick. You know, like I'm not a player who plays different stuff to have fun. I think I'm way past that point. You know, I'm looking for champions that hard counter the meta champions that only you can play. That only you can play, but other people don't play because they're either too lazy or afraid, or I don't know, whatever reason, right? I don't know. There can be a lot of things that I don't know. But for me, I've had many times where I failed, even in G2. And when I fail, is when Dylan comes to me in the gaming room. We're all sitting, 5 players, 4 staff or 5 staff nowadays. He looks at me in the eye. He says, "This is not good enough. You can't be playing like this when you want to play champions like this." And it was with Vayne, for example. I was trying to play Vayne. He looks at me. He said, "If you're going to play like this, we're not going to be playing these champions." And that's it. And I was like, okay. And at the time, I was like, oh shit, you know, I was like, it's tough, but it makes sense. As a coach, you don't want to waste games. And I feel like a lot of players also want to try. I feel like this is something that I have learned now. I don't try picks anymore in scrims. I try picks in specific 1v1 practice or in solo queue. This is what I do now. And before I try a pick in scrims, I have a complete idea of how I want to win with the champion. So basically,
Dylan loves that. That's
exactly.
a Dylan thing.
He loves that, and I had to work my way in bringing my way of champions into his structure. So he's like, "How do you win? How do you win with Zach?" I was the guy who pulled out Zach. Same with Zeus, right? At the same day. But I ended up sticking with it because I thought the champ was so OP. If you look at Zach, it's not a normal champ to play on top lane. But I was playing it a lot, and I was like, I want to play this into immobile AD carries, immobile mages. And at the time, a lot of Orianna was being played. A lot of like these things were being played. Exactly. And it was so strong against these champions. And it was the same with Rek'Sai. And this is the thing. Rodrigo is helping me find those champions. I put practice into those champions, and then I present the way I want to win with those champions to Dylan. And this is how we do it in G2. And it does require a lot of work. It is a lot of effort. And the most important thing is, in the end, you might not even get to play it, or it fails. And then what do? You waste a lot of time, which is also true. But I feel like it's not the champion that is important in this thing. It is how you make something work. And I think how I make something work nowadays is very good. It's very fast. It's very productive, you know. And I feel like I started working very well with everybody. Especially this year, it's even better because now I had a lot of help from Alfari, who was my position coach for most of the splits. I think the only time I didn't have him was at MSI, which was also surprisingly good, right? Like I felt very good in this MSI. That was where the SEC was very strong, and it was same with the when Twisted Fate was meta. Like I was like the first ones to play it because this is something that I suggested. Like I was like, oh, TF is looking so OP. Like I couldn't lane against it. What do you think, Rodrigo? And then we were looking at stats. We're looking at what is winning the most. We're looking at like same with Rek'Sai, and he was like, hey, Rek'Sai has like some absurd numbers. What do you think? And then we're like looking at how can we make these things work. And Rek'Sai ended up being so OP it had to be nerfed back to jungle only. And this is the beauty, I think, of playing for me professionally. This is the beauty of like it doesn't mean you're bad because you have to play or you're looking for different champions to play to counter the meta champs. No, I think it's creative. I think it's actually that's harder to do than to keep playing 20 Renekton games or 20 K'Sante games. I know I can do it if I need to, and I'm very good at those champions as well. And this is another topic I need to discuss. Like in the last season finals, I don't know how many blue side games I played, but I knew I was going to play a lot of blue side games. So I stopped with all the random counter picks. Mervin had like a lot of counter picks, right? And this is also something I respect. He had working counter picks into like when I first played against him this season finals. He came with
No lead the Varus.
Exactly, the Porky into cannon and stuff like that. And for me, I was like, holy shit, this is smart. You know, this is good. He's playing it well. He's playing it well with his team. And for me, I only had cannon as a blind prepared at the time because I was like, what is going on? You know, and then you look at my solo queue as well. From all the time after that, I was spamming only blind picks, Renekton, K'Sante, Aatrox, Renekton, K'Sante, Aatrox all the time. So I know what I'm going to do. I know what I have to do in order for us to win and for me to be good, because I knew I was going to play against teams that will pick red side because either they want to counter pick me because they're too scared or whatever. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But,
all right. Because the aura, they just can't handle it.
Yeah, like BDS full red side, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. I think Mad Lions full red side, and then and then we ended up going red side against them and lost that game, which also I take a lot of responsibility for that. He played Nidalee blind pick and I picked Aurelia into it, and I said on stage, Dylan, this guy will not be able to lane. I will fuck him up, and I ended up really griefing, you know. Which for me, if I play this game again, I can tell you probably he's gonna be like 0-5, you know, because I ended up in visualizing the game wrong. I was calling my jungler to come top early, which ended up being useless. He wasted time, and then the enemy jungler was top lane, and then I died to the gank. It was a complete disaster, you know, and that was because I didn't visualize good enough. And you learn from these things. You learn how to, you know, recreate moments. You learn how to make sure you are on the good side and not on the bad side, because we have the saying in G2. We always like to say we are on the good side of history, and there's teams who are good on the good side of history and teams who are on the bad side of history.
I think that's what like Trump supporters say, the right side of history, that type of thing.
Okay, I don't know about that, bro.
Yeah,
yeah. I feel like I have built a very good structure to, you know, make things work, and I'm open still to like make it better. I think over the years, like as you said right in the beginning, I have been playing for a long while now, and I feel like the moment I realize or I think that I'm not getting better, there would probably be the time where I'm like, maybe it's time to stop, you know. Whether
start a podcast, bro. Might be time. Give me a third guest on the SmackDown, third host.
But you know what I mean, right? It's like, I think for me, I think it's important to grow. The game changes constantly, so you also need to change. I feel like the players who stays the same are the players who end up just retiring, you know. And I think the thing about age, I think nowadays there's a lot of good players who are like 28, 29, like 30. Look at Core GJ, right? He he's competing to be the best in his region because he's trying. He's not just like laid back, you know. I feel like you can maybe at best, if I stopped working on myself and on like the game, I think I could do 1 or 2 year tops, and then the other players will very quick be ahead of you, you know. There's everyone who wants to be in your position, and if you don't do the work, you will just be left behind in no time. No one is going to care about you, and I don't want to be that player, you know. I want to go out on my terms, not because I'm too bad. Like, I feel like that would be a failure of a career, and I would not be proud of telling that story to anyone, you know, in like 10, 15 years.
To the mini BB Schmurdas, bro.
You know, Vivi, I'm curious to kind of round off in a way like how you have grown, right? I think I had a conversation with you back in 2020, moving into 2021. We talked for the first time because there was a consideration of bringing you in as a top laner and putting Bwipo mid lane. Back then, like every lane was considered for Bwipo, and that offseason was one of the messiest ones ever. But something that I have noticed is like I'm a big people guy. I like to understand people and like to read into things, and I think that I'm a good judge of character. From outside, it's very, very clear that to G2 you bring a lot of intangibles, a lot of the things that you've mentioned in terms of leadership. For those, you know, that have it ill-defined, what would you say that your role is on this team? Because there's so many aspects to what you bring as a person to a team, to the current G2 alteration, of course.
I mean, my role was like when once Jankos left, we had a discussion of what is your role in your team like, right? Like what do you bring to the team? And for me, I always knew I was good at just speaking, right? Like before, I was speaking a lot of like random stuff. I was joking around, especially the time we had Flacket on the team as well. Like I feel like I talked a lot, but I also talked a lot of bullshit still, you know. And I love Flacket. I think I don't think I'm ever gonna meet someone that I'm gonna like this much. As like a as like a person, you know, where I vibe on the same level. Bro, I could go to chill with Flacket and we could just vibe for like 10 hours straight, you know. Like it's just but it was different, you know. For me, at that time, my role wasn't to be the guy who says the hard words and stuff like that. I feel like since Jankos left, I had to be the guy, and I was happy to be in that position. I think I can be, or I am, a very strong voice when it comes to motivation, when it comes to emotional stability. I feel like the way I handle the emotions in game is, I would say I'm a very emotional person. Like actually, I care a lot about stuff and how people are saying stuff. But when it comes to emotional stability, I think I'm very, very good at it, and also understanding how people feel and how they behave, what it means. I can see on your body language, at least from the people I know, how they are doing, right? Like I know when Yike's triggered just because of the way he looks, right? I know when he lost the game, for example. I don't even need to see it at the screen. Same with Caps, same with like the others, and I feel like being able to say the right words is something important. You know, like if you say something stupid or something ridiculous, you're gonna lose respect really fast, especially when you have to say speeches every day before game day, right? And for me, this is something I love doing. I love, you know, I just feel good saying these things because they come really from my heart. Like I believe those words. I think sometimes it's harder, sometimes it is easier, depending on how the days are going. Sometimes you have very hard weeks, which makes the speeches hard, and you need to really find the right words, because if you say something weird, it's going to be bad, right? Especially an important match. And I think one example I always give is 2023 MSI. I think it was against Gen G. We were 2-0 down, and we're about to go on stage. I turn around, I gave the greatest speech I've ever given. I believe we ended up losing 3-1 anyway, but I think we would have just lost 3-0 if that speech wasn't there. And I still believe it to this day, that I think saying the right words at the right time means so much for emotional stability and direction. And I still believe that this is something very important. And Yamato, you are doing it. I know you are doing it, and I know you are very, very good at this as well, because I've been listening to some of what you were saying. It is hard, right, to find the right words, and I still mess up to this day. And then I had to reflect, what did I say wrong, or like how was my delivery? Especially when you are a player and you also have to think about how you have to play. This is an ongoing topic I have with Isma, that he's like, you need to improve the role of your as a captain, but you also still need to play the game on the same level as everybody else, because that is important, right? I can't just focus on saying the right words, because then I'm just like a motivator at that point. I also want to be able to carry, because then I feel like the words that I am saying have like so much weight on them, and that is my role. I feel like every time we have some harsh topics, Isma is like looking at me, be like, "Oh, get ready to speak," because he knows I am gonna say something that makes sense and that leads topic. I feel like I have to lead conflict whenever there is conflict. Obviously, our coaching staff is doing a great job at this as well, and this is an ongoing topic we have with the team. And I'm very, very grateful. I'm actually together with this team. I feel like I never had this healthy of a team atmosphere, and I'm very, very grateful to this. I think if any team would be able to copy what we have, it would be much easier for everyone. I think it's hard to reach, because I think everybody needs to be on board with it and their emotions. But it's hard. It's very hard. Even for me, also like just being late, right? Like we had this little topic, like Dom, you were posting this, like being late. If you're late as someone who's looked at as the captain, then it's something bad, right? Because then you're also like, oh, if he's late, I can be late, right? And I think this is something that I have to think about before I do stuff. Like I'm also late sometimes still, right?
Yeah.
And then
like to this podcast or something, like,
yeah, for example.
No, I'm talking about important stuff though. No, you're never late to the things that actually matter. That's what I like about
when you're late, you also need to be able to take responsibility. And this is something before I was like, we have this thing when we're late, we have to do like some push-ups, to be like punish ourselves a little bit as like a funny way, and everybody's on board with this, right? And if you go there and then you fight that you have to do push-ups, it's a bad sign, right? It's just a bad sign. It's just like you're not taking responsibility of you being late. And for me, in the beginning, I was doing that, and I was like fighting off that. And Isma was like, "Bro, this is not good. What you're doing, like this is not the role of a captain. Like you're not behaving like a captain." And I feel like that is something that, for me, it's important. Like I didn't know what it meant, what impact it had, until I got told this had this impact. Because from an outside perspective, like not from a non-player perspective, you can see things very clear. I feel like when someone is like speaking up and saying like, "Oh, this and this and this and this," I feel like that's why we have such a good structure in the team with like Isma, Romain, Dylan, Rodrigo, Dave, and Duffman as well. They have gotten so good at letting people know what's up, And for me, it makes the role of a captain also just a lot easier.
No, I'm with you 100% with it's like if I tell players something or a coach tells players something, it's not the same as the guy who's riding into battle, on the horse, on the front line. It comes with a lot more difficulty because you need to, fucking still fight, but it comes from the purest place. I wonder with everything that you've mentioned, a player that me and Dom often discuss is Yike, and we always have this conclusion that like we believe that Yike would become so much better of a player if he actually
suffered more. Yeah, we want him to suffer. Like he needs to go on the 315 Schalke for a split and just like really just suffer. For like he's had, maybe it's just we're old and bitter. He's had the silver spoon. Like he gets into G2, his first team. Like he can kind of do whatever. He can invade, die, doesn't matter. Game's still fine.
Because
continue though, Yamato.
the main thing that I wonder is this something that you guys ever like wrestle with? Is like is there a point where he has been too spoiled, or how do you deal with the fact that he is a rookie that came into a very, very efficient and good environment? Is it something that has ever crossed your mind? It's like, bro, you're so fucking lucky to be here, man. You should be suffering somewhere here, man.
Yeah, you should be on fucking curse, banned, fucking play relegation, some shit. Like you gotta really have some of these experiences, bro. That shit puts hair on your chest.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I hope he knows he was spoiled. You know, like if you look at his career, he's only been winning. Like his win rate is crazy.
Yeah.
But like he's a cocky kid. You know, he knows he's cocky. He also, I respect Yike a lot. I think I had a very heartfelt one-on-one with him. Like we have this thing where we do one-on-ones with players, and I told him I think he can be the best jungler Europe has ever produced if he learns how to carry these games, which we discussed earlier, right? And this is something. This is exactly same setting I had with Parth. I tried to really recreate this setting of like, I care about you, so I'm telling you what I think you should do, you know. And I think Yike is a guy that has what it takes. He has the emotions for sure. He's very emotional as well.
He's a jungler, bro. Junglers are mentally ill. That's just how we're built.
And I think he's in a very good place right now. And I don't know if he will ever have to fight for like the 10th place or the 9th place, you know, because he is very good. But if he is, then I think he will be prepared, because I feel like we do care a lot about like that aspect, emotional aspect as well. And Isma is really working with him a lot. I think I don't know if it will make him like the GOAT if he goes 10th place once, you know. maybe not. But I think that we had these crazy, you know, discussions with him, talks with him. I feel like I usually have good talks with my teammates, and I think with Yike especially, I think, yeah, I really meant what I said when I said I think he can be the best Europe has ever seen if he learns this special ability to be able to drag people wherever he wants. And I think he's getting, like, if you look at his last games, his brand and stuff like that, he's been amazing, you know. And like, yeah, like we had some experience with the Gwen, and it didn't work well. But he's constantly getting better, you know. Like when Ivan was a thing, I feel like he was so much better at Ivan than anybody else we played against. That was because of how much effort he puts into those champions as well. And yeah, I think he still has so much room to improve on, like, a not necessarily as a mechanical player, but like as an overall player of like how to win the game, you know. Because from an outsider perspective, you don't see what is going on in these games. You don't know why people are doing which decisions, why who's saying what, right? Like, sure, you have these voice comms, but that's mostly highlights. There's no strategy planning and stuff like that. And I think Yike is someone who really understands his role very well. I think he understands his role very, very well in how to be strong himself. I think, again, if he has the skill of like being able to drag people to doing what he wants, I think, which he is getting better at, by the way. I think he's been improving rapidly as a player, and I really like to play with him. I also think he's quite funny at times, you know. But yeah, it's been amazing so far to play with him. I think, like, firstly, when Jankos left, I was like, oh, is he going to be able to be like Jankos? I think Jankos was a player who was able to carry a lot. Like, we had a lot of moments where Jankos was messing up individually, right? But he was still able to carry these games because he was just making so smart calls. And I think he really, really filled his shoes, you know, really well.
I think from here we should just talk about G2 as a whole, because after MSI, people had extremely high expectations. I mean, on paper, you guys did end up winning the region. You know, you won season finals, you won summer. But I think the way that you guys played didn't inspire like too much confidence from like the outside, because for me and Yamato, what we would always say is, if you guys get like 15 minutes, like, I mean, the way you guys play in Europe, like, you guys are so much better than other teams on the map. But it feels like you guys just didn't have many good early games. Like, it felt like almost always you guys are coming from behind, or you have to lane swap a bunch to you know, get out of a bad situation. And when we look internationally, we look at a lot of these teams and we just don't think it will be as easy to, you know, get advantages. Like you'll still be able to make up ground, but I don't think it will come back as quickly as it did versus like Fnatic and Mad Lion. So how was your like take on this, like the G2 early games? Because I think that was the biggest point of criticism that at least Yamato and I had towards your team recently.
Well, I mean, I think there's a very, very big reason of why Summer was looking so terrible. And it was because this was the first time ever in the iteration of this roster that we were in such a big slump mentally. There were a lot of victim mindsets going on, specifically everybody, but Hans, Summer, and Dylan Falco. I feel like everybody played part of why it was not great. We were not really caring for each other, playing for no one but himself. You know, I feel like every team goes through this phase at some point. And when we lost to Fnatic, things were going very, very dark. You know, I feel like Dom, you know this. Like you wake up, you don't want to scrim. Like it's just shitty to scrim. And I feel like,
I mean, is there ever some value to that? Because like one thing that I've learned over the years from talking to people is sometimes it's like maybe you do just need to like not scrim for a day and just like enjoy the presence of your team, or just do something where like you're not like in the fucking grind. Is there any value into like being like, hey, we don't feel like scrimming, so we're not gonna get anything out of the scrim?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. I have like there's one story to this topic, which I believe made us win. But yeah, the mood was really bad. I feel like everything was just super bad. Like we didn't have the try hard mindset of like, let's break this game, let's win this game. Me and Kevs were only on side lane, hoping our teammates wouldn't die, and then they died, and then we also died on side lane, and then Yike was trying to play for himself, and then it just stuff didn't work. I was playing a lot of Varus top lane, blind pick, and these kind of things, and it just didn't work, you know, like things didn't work. And then even before we played Fnatic on the finals again, like we were still playing very bad, and we knew we were making a lot of mistakes. And the biggest mistakes were that either we were getting caught on side or we were getting caught on mid lane. This is the two things that were happening, and no one was like saying like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why are you guys griefing? Why are we griefing? Right? Like, I really like when someone is like playing well and he's like saying like, he's like hitting the table saying, why the fuck are you griefing me? You know, I really respect when someone can say something like this, right? And no one was really saying stuff like this other than Dylan. Like, it's like, what is going on, guys? Why are you guys being little bitches? Why are you guys acting this way? Do you guys not want to win? Like, are you guys like lazy? And Romain is also always like saying things like, don't get too cocky. We still have to win. We're not the best team in Europe yet. We still need to win the trophy and stuff like that. And these things I think are good things to say when you are winning, because then it will keep motivating you. But when you're losing and you are saying stuff like that, it is very demotivating as well, right? Which didn't happen mostly at the time because we knew the mood was not great and we were in a bad spot. And then what happened was like, we didn't spend much time with each other, as you said, Dom. And I had a one-on-one with Romain. I was like, we can't play another day. You know, like I said, we need to do something together as a team. And that was the only time in this split that I have done something as the role of a leader, to, you know, bring our team back up to a better mood. And for me, that split was a failure as like my role. But what is my role as a player? And then I was like, guys, you don't have a choice. We're gonna go home after scrims and play Among Us the whole night. You know, as silly as it sounds, we went home, played Among Us, and that was the first time that week I saw happy faces because it was just fun. You know, like get your mind off of League of Legends. And that was one day before, I think, was it before BDS? It was before BDS, and we played back to back, right? And then I had a talk with Mickey, and I said, BDS is going to be the hardest series that week, because if you win that, I'm pretty sure the confidence is going to come back, you know. And yeah, we ended up playing 2-3 hours until everybody like kind of slept. We come back and to the scrim room, to the review room, and then suddenly the mood was better. Like we actually started talking. It wasn't great. It wasn't like great at any point. It was like sufficient enough to like win against BTS. And no offense to BTS, but like obviously we have our standard of how good we are playing, and we weren't even close still. But that was the start where we kind of came back of like how we were supposed to play. And if you look at from the time we lost to Fnatic in summer to how we won against Fnatic in LEC season finals, we played significantly better as a team. And it felt like before we kind of lost playing as a team, we always had a lot of talks of like, oh, we're playing very disconnected. But that is because everybody played for themselves and no one really played for someone to carry as well. And in season finals, a lot, again, as I mentioned with the blind picks and stuff, a lot of the times it was me and like Miki who played a lot of facilitating champions, to make the team work. And also it's not only that, but the gameplay fully changed. Whereas in like, oh, this is how we're supposed to play now. Respect the timing now, because Mad Lions and Fnatic, they will just drop the side wave and just try and kill you. And if you drop that timing, then now we can't push our side lane anymore. And now the whole map is on fire. And these things, they stopped happening, and suddenly we just started beating those teams because they like, once we get into our rhythm, it always was like enemies have one timing, and if you don't die to this timing, they will just be headless chickens because they don't know how to play the game. And this was basically
that was all 6 games. That was like all the games
we
won.
This is all the games. Not only that time, but any time we played against a team who didn't know how to play side lane. And I have to give credit, for example, to BDS. BDS was a team that only played 2 lanes, and they started playing more to side. And it was harder to play against them because I'm like, oh, he actually knows now. Like Adam actually knows now, and Nuke actually knows now how to get leads from pushing side lanes, because it's like, yeah, it's nice and fun to kill someone who is messing up. But I feel like if your whole strategy is based on someone messing up, and it is, like it is like playing the way Mad Lions and Fnatic plays, I think it's very punishing if you're bad. But I think if you're very good, it's hard to play against, because I feel like the thing you need against these teams like Mad Lions and Fnatic is discipline and patience. If you have that, I think the game gets like 3 times harder for them to play. And I'm really curious on how they will play internationally and how other teams will react to them, because it is obviously a strategy that you get like bombarded in the game with it, right? It's like, oh my god, this guy's appearing on my screen. Like, what am I supposed to do now, right? And they are playing very explosive, especially Fnatic. I think is playing much better at this style than Mad is, because they use their TPs quite well. But yeah, it's a lot of talks we had, that made this working again. And I still think we need, or we have a lot of room still to improve, and like the meta will change, right? The AD carry meta is just like not there anymore. So we will see a lot more mages, we will see a lot more AD junglers. Let's see how the meta will evolve around the other lanes, but I think the mages and the AD junglers will appear no matter what. So it will be interesting how the game will change there, because now pushing side lane might be slightly worse because you don't take towers as fast and you don't push waves as fast. And we're gonna see how we're gonna, handle that. Maybe that will be better for us, because if you look at Caps, his best champions of all time, it's like Syndra, Ryze, and stuff like that. And these things are meta now, so I'm very excited, especially with the AD junglers as well. But yeah, this is something. It's a new project for us. I'm excited, so it will be interesting to see.
I have the perfect follow-up, because I know that if I ask you how well you're going to do at the World Championship, obviously you're going to say that you guys have the ambition to win it all. Last year was very disappointing, even though you guys had great practice. You had the boot camp as well. You had good records against some of the Asian teams. Now this time around, you guys are boot camping in Europe. Maybe you're playing against the North American teams, but you don't have, of course, that impression of how good the Eastern teams are in the game. Now, moving into this World Championship after a fairly good MSI, I would say, in terms of the expectations I had, how will this World Championship be different? What are the main things that were the learnings and from last year and everything that you have collected throughout the year? How will G2 look different coming into this World Championship?
I mean, for me, all the time I have been in G2, every international scrim have been at least okay. You know, like if you look at it, I think everything has been posted, and I think we never went really below 50%, which for a European team I think is good. You know, like we think it's good. And going into MSI, we had some clutch picks. You know, like I feel like in the beginning of MSI, Hans was like very targeted in bans, and then they ended up realizing, oh, if he leave second Rek'Sai open, which were the picks that me and Yike played a lot, they were just going to lose because we played really, really well on them. And I think these are the things that put us above other people because we played a lot of good champions that they didn't. And I'm not saying we need to find that again necessarily. I think we also were mechanically matching our counterparts. If you look at the games, I think there was no one really like significantly behind going into mid game, and this is something that I think is very, very important, right? I think scrimming from day one, if you don't take anything ever, you will be put behind, and it will just be another year Europe is gonna lose. And for us, we know that we just beat an LPL team this year, and we know we can. We have to prove, and we went close with T1 as well. So we know we can. Obviously, there was a 3-0 after that, and that performance, for example, I thought I played super bad. But overall, I thought my performances were very, very good, and you could really look at it saying like, oh, this guy played well most of these games. I want to have this again, right? And it obviously always starts with yourself, and this is something I want to prove for myself in the beginning because I'm not going to gaslight anyone. I didn't play super good in most of the international tournaments I have played. I don't think I played as terrible as people make it up to be, but I didn't perform the way I wanted to perform anyway, and the way people were seeing European top laners to have like hope, right? In the end, a lot of people look at Caps and they're like, "Oh, Caps will match these players," but that's about it. And I wanted to be that everybody on our team will be able to match anyone on the other side. And this obviously always starts individually first. So everyone needs to have this mindset of like, we're going to learn, right? If you're not good enough yet, we have to learn because there's no other time to do that. And when you get these scrim partners and then you have like 2-3 games where you're like, oh, this is just shit, we're going to get shit stomped individually. Because if you're going to get shit stomped individually, you can't learn from these games, right? Because firstly, if you need to get through laning phase to play the game, and then let's say you get through laning phase and then you get shit stomped in the mid game because they're just out macroing you, you're so far behind already. But when you can match them individually, and this is here where like the 1v1 practice I've had a lot this year really, really made me understand how trading works, how just laning in general works, how do I use my jungler and stuff like that. And this is something I haven't been thinking about as much before I had these talks or like positioning coaches or this regular 1v1s I do at least 2 to 3 1v1s a week when I'm having like a game day schedule, like an official season, which is...
You mean like sessions, right?
Sessions, yeah. And these go like 1 hour usually. And obviously then you start to understand like how a matchup is supposed to go. And then you can really tell your team, okay, I'm supposed to be behind 10 to 15 CS. I'm supposed to be ahead 10 to 15 CS. I'm supposed to have pressure at grubs. I'm supposed to have a dive timing. They can dive me. And once you have these things down already, then you can start playing the game. And I think all this time we were always able to play the game against most international teams. I think there were a couple teams that we were very hard struggling against. And before, like when I was in TSM, or the first year at G2, we were unwinnable scrims. Like we couldn't really win. Like we're like, oh, okay, they're just better. But when I was G2 in the last 2 years, I was like, yeah, I could see us winning I could see us winning. Like really, like not actually gaslighting myself, because I feel like a lot of players have to gaslight themselves, like, oh, okay, now it's the year, we're gonna make it. But I feel like the moment you don't have to like fake it, and you actually believe it, you can make it. Obviously, I think in a world championship you also need luck. You need draw luck. You need,
For sure.
because sometimes in an enemy team is just so much better in the way they are playing against you, and another team will just beat them, and then you will beat that team. I think that is just, it is a given that you need that to happen, right? Like, I don't think at a world championship, they might have been in a couple of years, but I think we need luck, we need hard work as well. But I feel like as long as you can believe it yourself, really, and I think that everybody on this team believes it, and this is why we are together anyway. And now us winning every single title in Europe, this is the first year in my career that I won every single title there is to win in my country, or like in my region. Plus going fourth on MSI, you could already say this year was the biggest success I've had in a year. But I want to obviously make it further than that, right? And obviously saying I want to win worlds and I am going to win worlds is a big stretch for people, and a lot of people are gonna think I'm delusional and stuff like that. But I feel like if I don't believe that, then I already lost there. That is what I think. And if people think I'm delusional, they want to think I'm delusional. I don't care. It's in the end, when you do win, you're the GOAT, and when you lose, it was expected anyways. So why do I care about other people's opinion, right? Like, even if it is hard, and it is hard, like it's obviously hard to be the world's best, right? Especially when Europe hasn't been showing up for a long time, and I know it. But I still, like, the last times that we had this opportunity, yeah, we whiffed. I know we whiffed, and it felt bad, and it felt really, really bad. But this year we actually had a good showing, and I want to have similar or even better showing. And coming in as well from this slump of summer split and ramping up on season finals, I want to be able to show that we can still be one of the best, if not the best. And this is obviously something that we need to probably be catching up. I'm not delusional with this, right? I think we need to be able to catch up to other teams, and this is now where the work ethic really, really kicks in, because I think we have the talent. I think we have the mechanical talent to match these guys, and I think in terms of like how we play the game, yeah, I agree. We are probably behind as of right now.
Okay. So you would say just the confidence comes from a purer place this year than the previous year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we need the draw luck, bro. Hopefully, you don't get the goat's energy in your
that bro.
stage again. No, I'm just kidding, obviously. The last thing. Okay,
oh my god, bro. I cried so hard as well.
Me too, bro.
Shit.
I was the tears of happiness, bro. I was just fucking. My region did it. We made it out of Swiss.
Bro.
I was just fucking with you. Obviously. All right. So this has been going on. This is by far our longest episode so far. So I feel like, we stopped going chronologically at a point because you have been in G2 for a long time now. But I think the last thing that Yamato and I really wanted to ask about, I mean, we could talk for hours, right? We could bring up how it is to play with caps and all this type of stuff. But the most interesting thing for us to talk about, I think, is the international players that you're going to be playing against, because now you have the experience. I mean, if you go look at everyone you've played against, 369, Bin, Zeus, like Dorian, like all these guys, and you have the personal experience versus all of them. So from your perspective, like, who has been the hardest player to play against? Like, who have you learned the most from? Who feels the best? Like, who feels like, oh, this guy is like the best out of all the people that you've got to play against internationally?
I mean, it's always like rotating. I think ever since I started playing against like Zeus and Bin, have always been either or is the best. I've never seen players like that. I think they are very, very, very good, and they really punish you. But then there were times where I was like, oh, actually this guy's better. But then I was like, oh no, this guy is better. But I think Zeus and Bin have been very great. I think 369 has been very, very great, very solid. I never really felt like 369 was like at the same level of Zeus and Bin in terms of like what he can like pull off randomly. I feel like when you play against 369, you know he's good. You know he's gonna win because he's supposed to win. You feel like he's gonna play the matchup as it's supposed to be, and he's gonna play well. That's what I think. And he's rarely gonna make mistakes. That's what I think, or from my personal experience. But when I play against Zeus or Bin, you feel like you're winning, but
like
then
the freak factor, bro. Like they can just do some
and
shit.
then
And you're
yeah,
like, what the fuck?
and then he just does some shit you don't expect, and he's just like he just kills you, and you're like, how is that allowed? You know, like you have a lot of these moments where you think like, how's this allowed? Like how did you do that? But in MSI, I thought that Bin was better than Zeus because all it was just me getting better, right? Like for me, it was like, oh, I'm matching very well against Zeus. Like when I was playing Yasuo against TF, for example.
Yep.
I was like, oh, I'm kind of doing the thing, you know?
Yeah.
Against,
yeah, bro. The first gank when you guys like 2v2 killed, I'm like, oh my god, it's happening, bro. Like,
yeah, exactly. And for me, there was like a moment of like relief, kind of, because I was like, I obviously had moments in my mind where I'm like, am I ever gonna be able to like match him, you know? Like, but I was, and I know I can now. I know I can, and it's not like I think he's very good. And for me, it's like whenever I play against him, I want to be able to take 100% of what he's giving me. And the same with anyone else, really, from this international stage, whether it's like a wildcard player or not, they will show you stuff that you can learn from. And I think if I use it well, again, like with the one-on-ones and like stuff like that, I think I can, be there with them. And I think I was at MSI. I think I was one of the best performing top laners at the tournament. And I'm not like here. I'm not gaslighting myself. And it's an incredible feeling, when you think about it. I might have not been the best at the tournament, but I think I was up there,
yeah, you could compete. Like I think that's what like the main thing is for Western players is like, are you actually competing or are you just like, just like in the game? You might have a good moment, but you can do that like it just disappears so quick normally. Yeah. I would say internationally.
And for me, like if you look at all of the games, usually Western players play against international teams. Sometimes they get advantages, but the advantages they just fade away very quickly.
Instantly. It's like 15 minutes hits and then suddenly they're just
and I want this to be not the case. And I think I mean, I have to say, like, the series after that, we played against T1. Zeus just shat on me, right? Like, I was completely outclassed. And it was a very weird series because they did some crazy swaps we never played against. And I feel like I got very behind of that. So I'm going to give me the benefit of the doubt. But I still have to say that he played much better than me that series. And I'm not going to be delusional about that. I was very sad that I left the tournament with such a performance. But yeah, for me, I think Zeus and Bin are the players I need to be better at if I want to win. That is my goal. I need to be better than those guys consistently, not only once or twice. Because if you looked at it in MSI, I was matching them or competing against them once or twice. But on the third game, I got shit on, right? And this is what I don't want. I want to be consistently being able to match them or be better than them. This is my goal. And because at the end of the day, you're gonna have to win best of 5. So you need to be better than him in most of the games.
It's gonna be a war, and it's gonna be a war, bro. It's not gonna be an easy best of 5 versus those teams ever.
Yeah, and you can have a lucky game. But the thing is, what are you gonna do if they ban out your champion? What are you gonna do if they play the second time the matchup? Because when you look at the Yasuo against TF, we played it twice, and the second time, I miraculously lived a dive that I was supposed to die every single time.
Owner.
Yeah, and like these things, they happen, right? And you play against the best players in the world, so obviously the games are going to be hard, right? Like it's like, to no one's surprise, the games are going to be hard. And yeah, for me, it is to be consistent in the way I learn the matchups and the way I just play against them. Because I feel like if you play with too much respect as well, like obviously they have so much respect because of how much they are showing. But I feel like if you have this respect while you're playing, you're just gonna play worse. And you need to be able to be like, I'm gonna shit on this guy, like play with nameplates off. Like a lot of people say this, right? But I think this is really important because if you think you're smaller than the guy, not literally I'm smaller than a lot of
Yeah, no, not
people.
physically. Yeah, no, I know what you
Not
mean.
physically.
Yeah. We're
But,
following you here, BB. We're locked in.
Yeah,
I know it's been
just
2
so
hours.
you know.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's just important, like have some confidence.
Yeah.
No, for
I
sure.
think Yamato and I were talking, before this episode, and we've been talking about all the teams, just how we think expectations are. And the conclusion that I came to when I was like thinking about your team more is that it's almost like the best problem that you guys have had recently. Because I think at first you have this idea of, oh man, if they're like losing early games, they're never going to be able to play the game. But I feel like the difference between your team and most teams that go internationally from the West that lose early games is they don't have the mid or late game down. It's like they can't, even if they get to the mid or late game, there's nothing there. Where I feel like you guys actually have the ability to play out winning game states, which is so important. Specifically, like we were sparring in our heads, like how would you guys play against Dom1? And it's almost reversed from how we normally think about these teams, right? You have a team like from the West, and normally it's like, oh, like the Western team needs to win early game. They need to be able to carry a lead because as soon as the Eastern team gets into the mid game, they're going to be making better decisions. But I think this is the first year where we have a couple teams going from the West, like you guys, TL, even FlyQuest to some degree, where I feel like these teams have the ability, you guys have the ability to actually carry out leads, and you play the game properly from ahead. So that's really exciting for us specifically. There's no question there. It's just, we just wanted to loop you into the discussions that we've been having. Because Yamato obviously he's been staying with me for about the last week. So, all right, BB, this has been definitely the longest episode of the Sackdown. Like, it's been super good, ton of information. I already know everyone's gonna love it. But before we close out, we always like to open it up to our guests. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about on this episode that you didn't get a chance to, or you're like, oh, I really wanted to, put this point publicly and you didn't get an opportunity to? If not, we can just end it here. But we always want to open up the floor to our guest.
No, I'm good. It's been a nice little talk.
For sure,
with
bro.
the boys.
It's been a pleasure, brother, bro. It's been a pleasure. We have I have very high hopes for you guys. I think this is the one, bro. I think this is the one.
Yeah.
I am doing my part in the propaganda department, but I am a believer.
Nice.
We're here to control the narratives around G2 and your career here. So we'll be fighting the good fight on the Reddit battlefront, so you don't have to. So yeah. Anyways, that's gonna be the episode. Thank you for joining, BB. It was a great one. So appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Sackdown.